What would you do if a child you've never met looked up at you and said, "You look like Daddy. Can I give you a hug?" Would you smile through the heartbreak? Would you kneel down? Would you believe it was just a coincidence? Or something more? Before we dive into the story, tell us, where are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to know who's here, and what this story stirs in you. Because this one might stay with you for a long, long time. It happened on a gray, quiet morning. The sky hung low. The flags moved gently in the breeze. And the cemetery stretched on like a sea of white markers, each one holding a name, a story, a sacrifice. Families stood close together. Some cried openly. Others stared ahead with the kind of silence that only grief can create. At the edge of it all stood a man. A soldier. His uniform was sharp. His boots clean. But his eyes, they told the truth. He hadn't come to be seen. He hadn't even planned on staying. He just ended up there, like something had drawn him in. And then, a small tug on his sleeve. He looked down. There stood a little boy. No more than 6 years old. His hair was messy, his cheeks flushed from tears. In his hands, he held a neatly folded American flag, pressed tightly to his chest like it was all he had left in the world. The boy looked up and spoke with quiet certainty. "You look like Daddy," he said. "Can I give you a hug?" The soldier's heart cracked. He dropped to one knee, gently, instinctively, and opened his arms. The boy leaned in and hugged him. Not like a stranger. Not like a polite gesture. But like someone holding onto a memory they didn't want to let go of. And then, the soldier noticed something. A simple black bracelet around the boy's wrist. He glanced down, just briefly. But what he saw stopped him cold. Jonathan Reed's. A name etched into the metal. Not just any name. It was his best friend's name. His brother. The man who never made it home from their last mission together. The soldier's hands began to shake. The boy pulled back just a little and looked into his eyes. "I dream about him," he said softly. "He says angels watch over us." The soldier couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Because in that moment, he knew this wasn't chance. This wasn't random. It was something more. And what happened next would change everything. They say every hero has a story. But some are remembered only in whispers and worn-out photographs. His name was Captain Jonathan Reeds. To some, he was a soldier. To others, a friend. But to one little boy, he was simply Dad. Jonathan wasn't the loudest man in the room. He didn't chase medals or praise. But when he smiled, when he really smiled, it was the kind of light that made people feel safe. He loved baseball, old war movies, and pancakes on Sunday mornings with his son, Liam, sitting on his shoulders, giggling with syrup on his cheeks. He wasn't just brave on the battlefield. He was brave in the way he loved. Loyal in the quiet moments. Present, even when life demanded everything from him. And then there was Michael Carter. His closest friend. His brother in arms. Not by blood, but by something deeper. The two met in training. And from day one, they had each other's backs. Same unit. Same base. Same sense of humor. They'd joke about getting old together. Retiring in some quiet town, arguing over lawnmowers and barbecue sauce. But life had other plans. It was their final deployment. A mission that went sideways in the worst way. Gunfire. Smoke. Chaos. And in the middle of it, Jonathan made a choice. The kind of choice heroes make. He shielded Michael. Took the hit that should have ended both their stories. Michael lived. Jonathan didn't. And in the moments before he slipped away, Jonathan grabbed his friend's hand. His voice was barely a whisper. "Promise me, if I don't make it home, look after my boy." Michael nodded through the tears, holding on like he could stop time. But no one can. Back home, everything changed. Emily, Jonathan's wife, was handed a flag. Folded with precision. Offered with words that never seemed to be enough. And little Liam. Well, he was too young to understand what fallen in service meant. But he knew Daddy wasn't coming through the front door anymore. And he waited anyway. Day after day. Week after week. Until the waiting turned into silence. And the silence turned into drawings. Of angels. Of stars. Of a man in uniform watching from the clouds. People said time would heal. But how do you heal from a missing piece? Emily did her best. She held Liam close, kept Jonathan's memory alive. His voice in bedtime stories. His laugh in old videos. His photo on the nightstand. And through it all, Liam clung to one belief. Mom says angels watch over us. That's what he'd tell anyone who asked. That Daddy wasn't gone. He was just watching from somewhere else. But no one could have imagined that the day would come when Liam would meet a stranger and call him Daddy. No one expected it. Least of all, Michael Carter. Some losses are loud, messy, public, impossible to ignore. But Liam's loss was quiet. It lived in the space between footsteps on hardwood floors. In the empty seat at the dinner table. In the silence that used to be filled by laughter. At first, he didn't cry much. People thought maybe he didn't understand. Maybe he was too young. But Emily, his mother, she knew better. He understood. More than anyone thought. He just didn't have the words. Liam was only 5 when they folded the flag and handed it to her. He sat on her lap at the funeral, his small fingers clutching hers tightly. He didn't ask questions. He just stared at the box. Wondering why Daddy couldn't come out of it. At home, the toys stayed untouched. The superhero costume Jonathan had promised to wear with him on Halloween still hung in the closet, tags on. And every night, Liam would whisper into the dark, "Good night, Daddy. If you're an angel now, please don't forget me." He'd say it like a prayer. Every single night. Emily tried to stay strong. She smiled when Liam was looking. Collapsed when he wasn't. She took extra shifts, missed meals, barely slept. Not because she wanted to. Because she had to. Because love doesn't quit. Even when your heart is shattered. But nothing hurt more than watching her son slip away behind his own quiet grief. Liam stopped drawing superheroes. Started sketching skies, stars, wings. He'd sit by the window, staring up for hours. Sometimes he'd hum songs Jonathan used to sing to him. Other times, he'd whisper things, like he was talking to someone who wasn't there. Then came the dreams. He told Emily one morning, almost casually, "Daddy came to see me last night. He told me not to be scared." Emily froze. He said it like it was real. Like he believed it. And when she asked what else he saw, he just smiled. He's still watching. He's always watching. But then came the illness. At first, it was small things. Fatigue, stomach aches, bruises that didn't fade. Then tests. Appointments. And words no parent should ever have to hear. It was rare. Aggressive. And they needed a miracle. Doctors spoke in numbers. Charts. Timelines. Emily sat in those fluorescent lit rooms. Trying not to scream. Trying not to fall apart. But Liam. He didn't seem afraid. One day, after another long appointment, he looked at her from the back seat and said, "Mom, I think Daddy's sending someone. Someone to help us." Emily tried to smile. Tried to play along. But inside, she was breaking. Because the only person who ever promised to protect them was buried beneath white stone and silence. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that Liam wasn't just imagining things. Something, or someone, was already on the way. Guilt is a heavy thing. He carried it for years. Every birthday. Every holiday. Every time he looked in the mirror and saw a man who lived, when his best friend didn't. Michael Carter didn't talk about the war. Not to anyone. Not even to himself. He tried to move on. Tried to blend into civilian life, new job, new city, polite small talk with strangers who had no idea what his eyes had seen. But Jonathan was always there. In the back of his mind. In the cracks between quiet moments. In the memory of a promise made on blood-stained ground. If I don't make it home, look after my boy. Michael remembered the exact moment he made that promise. He remembered Jonathan's voice, weak, fading, but certain. And he'd failed. At least, that's how it felt. He hadn't called Emily. Hadn't written. Didn't send flowers. He couldn't. Because how do you show up in someone's life when you're the reason their husband isn't in it anymore? So he stayed away. Buried himself in silence. Told himself it was better that way. Until one day, years later, he heard about a local Memorial Day service. Nothing big. Just a community gathering. Small, respectful, quiet. That was the kind of thing he could handle, he thought. He didn't expect anything. He certainly didn't expect him. A little boy. Big eyes. Tear-streaked face. Asking for a hug like he already knew him. Michael hadn't even looked at the bracelet until later. He was too stunned. Too shaken. But when he saw the name, Jonathan Reed's, his legs nearly gave out. It wasn't just a name. It was the name. The one he tried to live up to, every day since he came home. And now here it was. Wrapped around the wrist of a little boy, who had Jonathan's eyes. Michael needed answers. He found the courage to reach out to Emily. Didn't even know if she'd want to see him. But she did. They sat in her kitchen, the room quiet except for the ticking of the clock. Neither one said much at first. But when the words finally came, so did the tears. She didn't blame him. She never had. Jonathan always trusted you, she said softly. And I know you would have traded places if you could. Then she told him about Liam. About the drawings. The dreams. The illness. The strange peace that lived inside her son, like he knew something the rest of them didn't. He keeps saying an angel is coming, she whispered. Maybe it's time you answered. Michael left that night with something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. He wasn't sure what he could do. Or if he was too late. But he knew one thing for certain. He would not break that promise again. Hospitals have a certain kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind. The waiting kind. The kind that hums beneath fluorescent lights and smells like antiseptic and unanswered prayers. Room 307 had been Liam's world for weeks. Machines beeped in rhythm. 4 bags swayed gently beside his bed. Doctors came and went with practiced voices. And Emily, she never left his side. She held his hand. Told him stories. Laughed when she had to. Cried when she couldn't help it. But Liam. He wasn't afraid. I think Daddy's close, he whispered one morning. Closer than before. Emily nodded, brushing his hair back, not trusting her voice. She wanted to believe. Needed to. And then, one afternoon, he walked in. Michael. Liam had never seen him before. But when Michael stepped into the room, Liam's face lit up like sunrise. Without hesitation, the boy whispered, "You're the man from my dreams." Michael froze. His breath caught. Emily looked at him, stunned. He took a slow step forward, uncertain. Liam reached out a small, pale hand. "Daddy said you'd come." Michael dropped to his knees beside the bed. He didn't know what to say. But somehow, he didn't need to. Liam already knew. That moment changed something. And not just emotionally. Physically. Doctors began to notice shifts. Liam's vitals, stable for the first time in days. His color, a little brighter. Energy, returning. One nurse said, half joking, "It's like that man walked in and flipped a switch." But it wasn't a joke. That night, Michael offered to stay. Just for a little while. By morning, something unimaginable happened. Emily was called into the hallway. The doctor, usually stoic, looked shaken. "Your son's labs are changing. Rapidly. In a good way." "What does that mean?" she asked, barely breathing. "We're running more tests. But we think we may have a viable match." "A match for what?" He hesitated. "Bone marrow." They hadn't even gotten that far in planning. They didn't expect to. But now. Hope. The next day, Michael was asked, casually, if he'd be willing to get tested. Just to rule things out. He agreed without hesitation. And when the results came in. Perfect match. Not partial. Not borderline. Perfect. Everyone was stunned. Michael wasn't family. Not even a blood relative. But the compatibility? Beyond rare. And then came something stranger. During pre-op prep, a nurse noticed a mark on Michael's shoulder. Faint, faded. A small, curved birthmark. She paused. Later, in Liam's room, the same nurse looked at one of the boy's drawings, a crayon sketch of his guardian angel. And there it was. That same curved mark. Drawn in the exact spot. Weeks before Michael ever arrived. The nurse said nothing. But she watched Michael differently after that. As if maybe he wasn't just a man fulfilling a promise. Maybe he was the promise itself. The transplant went smoothly. Hours passed. When Michael sat by Liam's bedside, he whispered, "Your dad kept his word. You were never alone." Liam smiled, eyes fluttering closed. "I know," he whispered back. "I saw him standing behind you." Healing doesn't happen all at once. It comes in pieces. In small, quiet victories. A stronger heartbeat. Color returning to a boy's cheeks. Laughter echoing in a hospital hallway where there used to be only beeping machines and weary footsteps. Liam made it. The transplant worked. Against every odd, every statistic, every fear. He survived. The doctors called it remarkable. Emily called it a miracle. And Michael? He didn't call it anything. He just stayed. Every single day. He became a steady presence in Liam's life, not to replace Jonathan, but to honor him. He helped with school pickup. Read bedtime stories. Burn pancakes on Sunday mornings. Just like Jonathan used to. And eventually, when the time was right, he sat down with Emily and said the words that had lived in his chest for years. "I promised him. I want to be there for him, not just sometimes. But always." Liam was adopted formally the next year. And on that day, Michael gave him a small, worn box. Inside were Jonathan's dog tags. Scratched. Faded. Still carrying the weight of every memory. "This is from your dad," Michael said, voice quiet. "He told me to take care of you. I'm just keeping my promise." Liam didn't say anything right away. He just held the tags in both hands. Like something sacred. Then whispered, "I know. He told me. In my dreams." Years passed. Liam grew up strong. Kind. Steady, like the two men who had shaped his life in such different ways. He kept the drawings of the angel. Kept the bracelet. Kept the memory. And on the day he turned 18, he did something no one expected. He enlisted. Not out of duty. Not out of pressure. But out of something deeper. Gratitude. Because the boy who once asked for a hug now stood tall in his own uniform. A soldier. A protector. A living promise. At the cemetery, he placed fresh flowers on a grave marked Jonathan Reed's. And right beside it, another plaque, newly added. In honor of those who keep promises. Seen. And unseen. He stood in silence for a long time. Then saluted. One hand to his brow. The other clutching the same dog tags. Worn smooth from years of holding on. Some people say angels only exist in stories. But Liam knows better. Because some angels wear uniforms. Some show up when all hope is gone. And some keep promises long after they're gone. Some stories leave you speechless. Others stay with you long after the screen goes dark. This one? Maybe it did both. Because in a world where people come and go, where grief feels too big, and healing feels too far, sometimes, we're reminded of something simple. Love doesn't leave. It lingers in promises. In memories. In the quiet hands that show up when no one else does. Michael could have walked away. He tried to. But a promise whispered in the dust of war brought him back. Not just to keep it, but to become it. And Liam? He's proof that even in the middle of loss, life still grows. Hope still shows up. And sometimes, angels do wear dog tags. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone you've lost, or someone you still hold close in your heart, tell us. Drop a comment below. Say their name. Share their memory. Because sometimes, the simplest act of remembering is the most powerful thing we can do. And if you believe in second chances, in quiet heroes, and in the invisible threads that pull us to where we're meant to be, share this story. Let it reach someone who needs to hear it. And if stories like this matter to you, if they make you feel seen, or remind you you're not alone, subscribe to Heartfelt Tales TV. We're here to tell the stories that touch hearts, and maybe help heal them too. Until next time, stay kind, stay present, and remember, some promises never die.